I'm going to comment a little bit about advertising on YouTube. Now, I am not an expert in advertising by any means. I have no official knowledge or role in it as a YouTube employee, but one of the things that I do have is the ability to observe the world around me. One of the things that I know from going to events like VidCon and talking and listening to the advertisers and other things like that is the amount of money that the advertisers pay to advertise their content on things like TV are massively higher than the amount of money that they spend to do so on YouTube. YouTube has CPMs that range in the $10-ish range for pre-roll ads or other things like that, while TV has ad rates that are sometimes 10 times higher than that. And on YouTube, you have ad rates that pay out something like $1 per 1,000 views, which can be higher, can be lower, other things like that. But there are this is just an average from my own personal channel and from talking to other people on Reddit and other sources like that. And people are constantly questioning, well, how can I make more money as a creator? And this is a reasonable question, right? I would like to see more people be able to make money from creating content on YouTube. I would like to see people be able to make more money and be able to live entirely off of YouTube instead of having to resort to alternative funding mechanisms, whether they're Patreons or fan fundings or t-shirts or whatever else like that. I would love for people to be able to make money that is as high production value as the content on other platforms on YouTube. But in order to do that, you have to see money move from the television advertising space onto YouTube. The thing about YouTube is that advertising prices are set by auction. And so the way that you improve the amount of revenue that you get as a channel is to increase the number of people who want to advertise on your channel. And one of the ways to do that, of course, is just to improve the quality of your content and the desirability of your content. Since my content now gets more views than it used to, the average ad rates I was getting improved and I was able to see more revenue coming out of my channel. When my video went viral, I was getting up to $1.50 per 1,000 views-ish, which is much higher than I would get otherwise. And that was even though the fact that I was getting something like 80% of my views only had overlay ads. So the problem is that people are always like, well, I want more money. Okay, that's great. Well, how do you get more money? Well, you get more advertising dollars. How do you get more advertising dollars? Well, the way to take advertising dollars, the best way to take advertising dollars is from the existing advertisers on the existing platform, moving some of their ad spend towards YouTube. And the reality is that YouTube has more reach in the 18 to 49-year-old male age range than any single cable network. They are a massive platform for reaching out to users, and so advertising on YouTube can be a really compelling option, but people don't seem to see that. At the moment, the ad rates that are paid on something like YouTube are much lower than that on TV. Well, how do you fix that? Well, one of the reasons that that happens is because there's so much content that is out of the advertiser's control on YouTube. Right? So YouTube is a platform that allows people to upload any content, and your advertising can be displayed unless you're choosing to be very specific on any particular content. One of the ways that YouTube has responded to that is the recent discussion of demonetization. And so let's not get hung up in the details of demonetization as it was implemented. There was a lot of things that didn't go well in that whole story of communication and everything else like that. But demonetization, removing what YouTube describes as less than 1% of removing ads from less than 1% of the content that users want to monetize, allows you to take that remaining 99% and suddenly make it much more attractive. Because now you've removed the things that people are most unwilling to advertise on, right? So when a TV advertiser comes to you and says, well, I don't want to advertise on YouTube, it's gonna advertise on 9/11 replay clips or beheadings or other things like that. YouTube can say, no, that's against our policy. And we've removed those videos from the things that you can advertise on. You're never going to find your Dove soap ad or whatever ad there is out there next to a video that is about a beheading or is about whatever else like that, because these topics are so controversial, unless they're like, deep newsworthy documentaries or something else like that, that we realize that nobody wants to advertise on them. And keep in mind, many of the more risque advertising categories are banned from AdWords entirely. Everything from, gun sales to alcohol to tobacco to payday loans are things which are banned from advertising via AdWords in the first place. And so many of these kind of bottom feeder advertising schemes that you may find on other websites that are more open to whatever advertisers they can find are already not available in AdWords. So it's not like there's a market for we'll advertise on anything AdWords has already trimmed out a lot of that, and YouTube has already, and Google has already, trimmed out a lot of that. When, Dove comes to YouTube and says, well, I spend $50 million a year on TV, and I spend $1 million a year on YouTube, and I would like to improve my YouTube spend, but I'm afraid of seeing my content next to things that are really inappropriate. This is where demonetization comes in. By taking away advertising revenue from 1% of content, YouTube can suddenly go back and say, well, let's kind of start splitting the difference more. Let's take some of that TV spend and move it to YouTube. In fact, let's just take 5%. So here's the thing, that 5%, that 1% of content that gets demonetized, and while it has an overwhelming effect on some channels and content creators and everything else like that, and there's real concerns about that you want to make things as equitable as possible to allow people to create content, and you don't want to take away all of the funding sources from people who create legitimate news content by taking away the people who are the bottom feeders, who are re-uploading clips that were never theirs to begin with, and are monetizing them via means that are scummy, and are creating content that is merely designed to gain clicks and make money via ad revenue that really isn't high quality content. You're able to be in a position where by removing that 1% at the bottom of the list, you can increase the overall revenue for all of the other content by 5% or 10%. Or in reality, given that YouTube is one of the most effective networks out there with the broadest reach of anything that you could think about joining, maybe by 50%. Maybe the money moves from being on TV where you can't track the advertising, where you don't know the impact, where you don't have the click-throughs and everything else like that, where you've only got these brand reach engagement increases, and bring it towards a platform where you can do it. So I've recently started advertising because I have a $1 a day Google AdWords account to test out advertising. I've been advertising live stream alerts and exploring what that looks like. And so this is $1 a day more that was in the ecosystem than before. By doing so, I am increasing the bid rates on some videos that I am targeting on things like Twitch TV or Twitch live streaming or YouTube alerts or other things like that. These keyword searches and keyword, matches, I am increasing the ad rate paid out on that because that's $1 more in the ecosystem that wasn't there a week ago. But these big advertisers, the ones who are most scared of the UGC content, most scared of the picture where users are uploading things that they don't want to be advertising next to, are the ones who are going to drive that not up by $1, but by $1 million, or by $10 million, or by $500 million. Because if you look at the amount of money spent on a YouTube or on a Super Bowl ad, like $5 million for a 30-second spot, that kind of money could come to YouTube and do a lot of good spread out over the creators. I don't know how much creators make overall, but I know I'm not making $5 million. And so if you can increase the overall revenue that YouTube is getting, then by auction prices, a lot, and 55% of all of that ad revenue goes back to creators, then this is a net good for the world. And so all the people get upset that demonetization exists as a concept, or that, there will be some portion of content that can't be monetized, is failing to take into account that the reason that happens, the reason in the real world that happens, is because advertisers don't want to be advertising next to everything. And the reason they don't want to be advertising next to everything is they're not used to it. They're not comfortable. They don't know how that works, and they don't want to get into it. They want to advertise just like they do on TV. So by moving things just a little bit closer to TV, and maybe not like network TV, but at least cable TV, which is basically where the line is drawn, right? Would it be on HBO or would it be on a cable network? By moving things closer to the Cartoon Network or the Comedy Central level of control and everything else like that, suddenly you can bring advertisers into the fold who are used to that level of thing and say, great. And this is similar to the Google Preferred. Google Preferred was a program that was basically to create the network TV of YouTube, right? It was these broadcasters who are creating consistent, high-quality content and improve the revenue for them. But I want to see the revenue improve all the way down the line. Now, granted, I don't run ads anymore thanks to my Patreon supporters who are listed in the description below. But, I do want to see advertising revenue increase for everyone so that people don't have to run Patreon in order to be successful. And that's what demonetization lets you do, is move and increase the overall ad revenue on YouTube by increasing the comfort of traditional advertisers with being on the platform, by excluding the most offensive content and uncomfortable content for those creators, so that you can end up in a situation where everyone can be making more money. So when you think about whether demonetization is a good thing or a bad thing, just keep in mind that this is really just saying, I would like you to keep monetizing 1% of my content at a 5% lower rate, or a 10% lower rate, or a 30% lower rate, because I don't want to be like TV. I want to be like YouTube. But the reality is that maybe what you actually want to be is more like TV. And that's it. All right, cool. We'll go back to the game.